Welcome to the Ellis Martin Report. Today we're looking at one of the most important stories in the global critical mineral space, antimony, rare earths, and the urgent need for a secure U.S. supply chain. Joining me is Greg Schifrin, president of MinEx Corporation and a seasoned geologist leading Great Northern Minerals exploration efforts here in the United States. Great Northern Minerals trades on the ASX in Australia under the symbol GNM. Full disclosure, I'm also the U.S. Strategic Advisor for Great Northern Minerals, helping the company expand its presence and partnerships here in North America. Together, we'll discuss GNM's Catalyst Ridge project near California's Mountain Pass mine, one of the richest rare earth belts in the country, and explore how Australia and the U.S. are working in tandem to secure the resources that power our defense, technology, and clean energy sectors. Greg, welcome to the show, my friend. It's great to visit with you today.
Thank you.
Great Northern Minerals has been making waves both in Australia and in the U.S. The big story is antimony, rare earths, critical minerals, and the supply chain disruptions basically caused by the Chinese. We have a great project in California, right near the Mountain Pass mine. Why is this land so important?
Mountain Pass area is one of the richest rare earth belts in the United States. And just to give you a little history on myself, I've been working in the rare earth space and exploration and development of rare earth projects for over 15 years. I started working in 2011 with a company called Colorado Rare Earths and then U.S. Rare Earths. So I've got some history in this space. Mountain Pass was existing way before that, but no companies were looking around it because nobody realized that they could. But there's a belt in there that's over 10 kilometers long and 2.5 kilometers wide that was sitting there open for exploration that nobody was looking at. And then back in 2022, we got another Australian company involved in this area, and they're currently still spending money and looking at this area, trying to develop these antimony. And the idea came to my mind, and I got Great Northern involved. And so we currently have guys out in the field doing on-the-ground exploration and collecting data to try to pinpoint additional rare earth occurrences in that area.
And you're one of those guys on the ground. You were just there, weren't you?
Yes, I was. So I was out there with the crew through satellite imaging, radiometric data, different geophysical techniques. We've identified 3 priority areas on the concession that's controlled by Great Northern. And so we were systematically ground truthing these geophysical anomalies that popped up that had similar characteristics to what the Mountain Pass area looks like. And so I was out on the ground with another well-seasoned geologist who's been in some of the other rare earth terrains. He's worked with me in Idaho and Montana. There's another similar age, Prozoic, very old, 1.5 billion old year rock belt in the Idaho-Montana area that's got similar carbonatites and similar geology. And Rob Kell is his name. He's worked with me there, as well as on the Loxley project to the south. So we took a lot of those years of experience of working on similar terrains, and we're focusing that experience on trying to come up with drill targets for Great Northern.
As the Australians are quite active in the Mojave, in Idaho, in Nevada, in Utah, really in any part of the U.S. that relies on the mining and eventual production of rare earth elements, critical minerals, antimony, and what have you. And do you think that's because they're so close to the end users in Southeast Asia, China?
That could be part of it. I also think that Australians understand resources. Their country is a resource, their economy, and this is purely my opinion on this. In the United States, we're a country that you go try to raise money on an AI concept or some kind of tech deal, you can go to Wall Street and raise capital, people invest, and there's money put behind you. But in the United States, if you're looking for critical metals and things like that, trying to go get the capital behind you is a struggle because no one understands or wants to fund these projects. As previously come out of Canada, there was a cobalt rush in the United States because Idaho has a cobalt belt back in 2016, 17, 18. And the majority of the investment came out of Canada at that time. I got together with another U.S. guy, and we put together a company called American Cobalt, and we got a position in that district, but we're the only American company. So I'm not sure what goes on in the minds of America other than wanting to use it. We know how much rare earth F-35 takes. We know how much cobalt each electric vehicle takes, but we're not going into the investment communities to invest in these things. We'll invest in Tesla, but do we invest in trying to find and source out rare earths in this country to create a domestic supply? And the answer is generally no.
So we're not investing in the commodities that we cannot live without in this country.
Yes. And to me, a big focus that I think, instead of being world dependent, we have our own domestic resources. Why don't we try to identify them and become independent of the Chinese or the DRC? Because where does our cobalt come from? Elon Musk and all the other players in the electric car space know that more than 70% of the cobalt's coming out of the Democratic Republic of Congo, which uses child and slave labor to source the material. But everybody turns a blind eye to that without any issues. But we have our own cobalt. And everything, of course, is market fluctuated. When cobalt price was increasing, the development in Idaho was moving forward, and then the cobalt price dropped significantly, so then everything froze up. And that also was done by an Australian group called Schifrin. They were the group who was developing. The Canadians had been in there with Formation Capital, and after so many ups and downs in the cobalt price and 20 plus years of trying to move the project forward, they finally just ran out of gas and collapsed. And then an Australian group came in. So I think that one of the things in the United States, we have to look at ourselves and say, we sit there and let the Canadians and Australians, their economy has a much larger percentage of resource revenue in their GDP, and they understand resources and they understand the value, and they know that if you can create something, there's a good economic return on it, and it's not an electronic gadget or a high-tech or biotech type of thing. It's real hard assets. And right now, I was just at Mountain Pass by the mine the other day, and supposedly they're working on their facility, but what they have sitting out in front of their facility is hundreds, if not thousands, of super sacks of concentrated material that they probably need to process and create the actual substances that we need. And I don't think that the facility is ready or at the point where they can do that, because if it was, I don't think they'd be stockpiling all this material there. It'd be coming out and they'd be selling an end product.
It's the only facility of its kind in the country right now.
I think it's still in the process of fine-tuning the processing so that they can create the end products, because each element, and I'm not sure of their processing technology because a lot has changed over the last 15 and 20 years. It used to be that they took the material into a solution state and then basically extracted each individual lanthanide series rare earth element one at a time. So they get it into a solution, they pull out lanthanum or praseodymium or whatever that particular element that they could, and then they put it back in the solution and pull out a different one. So it was a complex, very caustic process. And so I've heard that there's new technology that's been developed at various universities, whether it was in the Salt Lake region or University of Arizona, that hopefully we're incorporating and we're using the new ideas and technology and extraction, because I think that's been a big hurdle in rare earths. And that's why the Chinese are doing it. Their rare earth deposits, from my understanding, are slightly different. A lot of them are in clay deposits, and they just throw people, manpower, and money at it because they have and can. And so they're producing at a low cost. They're producing, extracting these elements, whether the process is caustic or not. There's a world demand. They control it all. So it's a very tough situation for the United States. We just didn't learn about this last week when the Chinese talked about cutting down the supply of rare earths to the U.S. We've known about this for decades. When I was on U.S. Rare Earths, we had on our advisory board and board of directors generals. One of the key guys was on a Congressional Medal of Honor committee. These guys are very conscious of it in the DOD. They know this. This is not new news. This is all old news. Mining is a bad word in the United States, and it's a slow process. things take time. You can't go out and make a discovery and mine next year. Maybe in China you can, but in the United States, it's going to take you 5, 10, 15, or 20 years from discovery to actually start producing, create revenue. That's a long timeline to get. The market only wants to look at the results. They want to see revenue. They don't care about between start and finish.
So that explains why really the Australians, and then second to that, the Canadians, can drive the sector in the U.S. because we just don't have the stones to do it.
From my experience in the U.S. who do get involved, I've been through so many of the institutional investors, mostly looking at rare earth or gold. And when things are hot, yeah, they want to get involved. But I've sat in the board rooms in different banks in Midtown Manhattan, and the guys think that we're talking about it in February, we're mining in July. And I'm like, that's not how it works here. We have rules and laws. You can't go acquire something, find something in February and be mining it in July. Not in the United States, you can. And there's a process, and there's a good reason there's a process, because we have the environmental laws, we have the engineering controls, we have things so that we try to protect our environment and our people. It's not a bad thing, it's just an understanding and acceptance of what it really takes in this country to be a responsible corporation and miner.
Can we assume that the geology at Catalyst Ridge is the same as the neighbors?
It's the same geology.
So what are the next steps then for Catalyst Ridge and your team?
The next steps are we're in the process of mapping and sampling and collecting data in a first pass geological review of the property. We're finishing that up this week. So it'll be sometime this week when we've put the last 2.5, 3 weeks of actual ground investigation, ground sampling, running around with different kilometer meters because there's an association of thorium with the rare earth elements from the monazite that comes up with it. Then we'll take that data in the first pass sampling, we'll look at it, we'll identify the areas to focus and concentrate on, and then we'll come back for a second field review focusing on the areas that are the most prospective from the sample data collected. Out of that, we'll focus on trying to generate drill targets.
Typically in California, it has not been a mining-friendly state in the past. That's a bit different in the Mojave. Any issues with permitting, local community buy-ins, environmental reviews in that area, to your knowledge?
There's always a concern with permitting. We permitted drill sites for a competitor, Loxley Resources, who controls ground to the south, through the Bureau of Land Management in the county of San Bernardino. It took a little bit of time and back and forth, and then probably a month or two of review. So in 2 to 4 months, you can have a drill permit as long as there's no major issues. And of course, this is an environmentally sensitive area. The whole region is backed up against the Mojave National Reserve. But I think that the regulators in the county understand the importance of the work that's being done. So permitting is possible. We had no problem with getting a permit through with the Bureau of Land Management out of the Needles, California office, which is the oversight agency for this region.
The company's about to list on the OTC right now, which will definitely open up the market for a lot of us U.S. investors. What are your thoughts on this?
I think that it's an opportunity for U.S. investors to get involved in a company that has a strong management team and a strong market presence, especially in the ASX. And they're trying to expand and develop into the U.S. markets. I don't think they depend on the U.S. markets for their capital. I think that their capital primarily comes out of Australia, but it creates a presence and opportunity for Americans to participate and get involved in the upside in funding rare earth exploration and development in the United States. And I think there's people out there who want to be involved. Some of them just don't know how to be involved.
And now they can be.
Yes.
Greg, it's great catching up with you. I look forward to another update in just a couple of weeks. Thanks so much for joining me today on the program.
All right, Ellis. Good to talk to you.
That was Greg Schifrin, president of MinEx Corporation and the U.S. lead for Great Northern Minerals, a company moving fast to develop antimony and rare earth projects right along California's Mountain Pass corridor. Great Northern Minerals trades on the ASX in Australia under the symbol GNM. I'm Ellis Martin, U.S. Strategic Advisor for Great Northern Minerals, and this has been another edition of Money Talk Radio and the Ellis Martin Report. To learn more, visit greatnorthernminerals.com.au. Subscribe to the Ellis Martin Report. It's free. Go to ellismartin.com.